Sal Serio is a musical amphibian of sorts. He is a musician, a freelance writer for Maximum Inc., and a volunteer DJ at 89.9 WORT FM under the moniker DJ El Serpentine. Sal Serio was an original member of the band Moral Disgust that formed in the early 1980s at UW Oshkosh. Moral Disgust was a do-it-yourself punk band in an era where there were few in the state. Their unique sound made waves in the local music community, so much so that their performances incited riots at some of their shows.
Some of those shows were really awesome and some of them really sucked because it was the do-it-yourself hardcore punk rock days, and it wasn't glamorous. We weren't hanging out in the green room, being served tenderloin with Grant Hart from Husker Du or anything like that. We were playing like VFW halls and small clubs and things like that. The Circle Jerk show, though, kind of sticks out in my mind. That was in Turner Hall, which has long since been ripped down in Madison. And that was actually our first big show in Madison when we drove down from Oshkosh and played Madison. And I remember Keith Morris, the singer from the Circle Jerks, was very gracious and very friendly. He wasn't feeling well that day, so he kind of hung out backstage and kept to himself. But he did go out of his way to say that he enjoyed our set and that he appreciated the fact that we had traveled to play the gig with them. And so that was cool. But like Black Flag, those guys were jerks. Henry Rollins hit me at a show once.
Wow.
We had run-ins with some of those bands. But that was an interesting scene because we got to know guys like Jello Biafra and East Bay Ray from the Dead Kennedys, and metalheads didn't like us because they thought that we were trying to steal their girlfriends, and we actually covered Metal Health by Quiet Riot, and they took offense at that because they thought we were making fun of them, but they didn't realize that actually we appreciated the same things that they appreciated. But I would say by a couple of years after that, the metal scene and the punk rock scene came together, and there weren't all those fights that had happened at some of those earlier gigs. Because I found that I had talents in other areas, and why not mine as many niches as possible? After I moved to Madison in the late 80s, there was a paper based out of Milwaukee called The Newsletter, and they were looking for a Madison correspondent. And I thought, well, this is a good way for me to get my foot in the door with the local scene. Well, that led into an offer to write for a paper called Night Sights and Sounds, which was actually the early version of what eventually got bought by Rocker and is now called Maximum Inc., which is who I write for currently. It's been very rewarding, more on a personal level than on a professional level. And of course that ties into the fact that what I do is based on being a volunteer and not on chasing down a paycheck at the end of the day. Because I've got a day job. I've already got a paycheck. I do this other stuff because I love it. A few years ago, I did get to interview Ace Frehley when he was putting out his Anomaly release, which was his last solo album, and it was a comeback of sorts. It was a huge thrill to do that, but at the same point in time, when I listen to that interview now, I could tell that he was sort of tired of being interviewed and a little bit distracted, I think. It's hard to do those things over the phone. I just recently did an interview with Robert Lamb from the group Chicago. Had influenced me so much early on, and he was very insightful, and Actually gave me twice as much of his time as what we had originally bartered for, and so he was very gracious and very respectful. So you see those different sides of things. An old jaded rock star like Ace Frehley that just sort of feels like he's kind of giving you something, giving you some of his time, and then someone along the lines of Robert Lamb, who's had a much longer career than Ace Frehley, who is actually very generous with his time.